If you watched my previous Marvel Legendary expansion video, you know I talked about the Black Panther expansion and how much I enjoyed it. But it wasn't actually the newest one. I released that more in with the Black Panther movie. It turns out the newest is Black Widow, which is based a bit more off of its movie, which came out a little bit before. A little harder for me to tie that one in. Now, this revolves around Black Widow and the people in the Red Room, as well as some other Soviet heroes, or maybe just people who have crossed paths, such as the Winter Soldier and the Falcon. So let's see what they bring to the table and what they will uncover for you in your games of Legendary. What you see here are the heroes included in this expansion, and most of them are returning using keywords from previous expansions. The one new keyword is actually played off an old keyword, and that is Unleash. Unleash here works with Undercover, a keyword from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. expansion. Undercover would tuck heroes into your victory pile, giving you points and also triggering abilities off of other cards. Here, you have Unleash that actually brings cards in your victory pile back into your hand. Now, let's actually get to the heroes. First off, let's start with the famous spy herself, Black Widow. By the way, she, as well as her friend here, have the S.H.I.E.L.D. hero type, which means they work even better with the S.H.I.E.L.D. expansion, which introduced Undercover. Now, I feel her whole gimmick is pretty much just fixing things in her favor. She uses the dodge mechanic, which was actually from a villain set. Seems appropriate that a spy should appropriate a villain keyword. And she is able to usually fix your hand, put heroes under cover you don't want or need. She pretty much makes sure you can do whatever needs to be done in order to make sure you have a good turn. She also has dark memories, most of them do, meaning that you're going to be able to power up depending on what's in your discard pile. I do also appreciate her big card. In her original base set version, she tried to rescue bystanders, so was her whole gimmick. Here, she gives you a bunch of attack if you either have Undercover or bystanders in your victory pile. Pretty much, it's a nice nod, or at least that she mixes well with her old set, as well as making sure that you want to use the Undercover mechanic. Overall, she, like I said, doesn't really need to be mixed with that S.H.I.E.L.D. expansion or even any of the other people who do Undercover. She really feels like she just is there to help you out and make sure you have better hands. Next up, though, we have Yelena, and she is all about that Undercover unleashing, then going back undercover. This really revolves around this card here. It's a cheap card. It costs 2, gives 3 attack, but once you play it, you have to send it undercover. Thing is, she has plenty of other cards that let you unleash cards that are undercover, and you pretty much just bounce the cards back and forth, back and forth. When I first read it, I thought that when you bought the cards, they went into Unleash, so you had to wait until you unleashed them. But then I realized it's when you played them and what her actual mechanic play style is, and it turns out to be a really fun game loop. And because of that, as long as you can get some of her Unleash cards, she works out really well. Now, I can see that being if only her red cards came out and none of her other Unleashed cards did, then you'd use it for a one-time attack. But then it's also out of your deck. It's like a sidekick at worst. Overall, a fun play style. Definitely works a little bit better if you could probably get some more unleashing going on. But she does a pretty good job doing it herself. Then we have the Red Guardian. He's interesting because whenever you buy his cards, this is what I mixed up with Yelena, they automatically go undercover when you purchase them. All his cards go undercover, but those same cards then say whenever you fight a villain or you do a unique mechanic, whatever the case may be, it unleashes. His own cards just come back to you. So yeah, you have to wait a bit to get them, but you're guaranteed to get them when you want. So if you know you want to kill something and get that bonus, then do it. It's usually pretty easy to trigger them, then you just get a nice bonus. And if you keep track of the triggers, you can try to make sure you get that card when you actually want it. Then the Falcon and Winter Soldier, the buddy cop movie everyone wanted, return together. Outside of this major card, they all come in dual split cards because their whole big shtick is dark memories. Like I mentioned before, that is from an older set where you get stronger depending on different hero classes in your discard pile. Hence the split cards. So they're able to at least buff themselves up mostly on their own. You probably want to try to get some other heroes, but as long as you if you bought a couple of these cards, maybe buy a red card. It's not too hard. I'm not the hugest fan, but I get the game loop that's going on. In particular, I happen to like this one because it has a draw 2. Draw 2 is always fantastic. And then you can just, if you're using things like dodge with this card, then that's a nice big attack. But I will admit I'm not a big fan of Dark Memories. It always seemed to not do that well with me, or when I get it, it wouldn't work well, or there was an enemy with dark enemies, so it sort of canceled themselves out. So I'm not the biggest fan on that mechanic, and that's going to come up again with the next hero, and that is White Tiger, which, unlike Falcon and the Winter Soldier, she doesn't have nearly as much color support there. So she really is going to need you to buy into some other heroes in order to help that out. I will say I did like this card, which can be used to help thin your deck when you want to take out some of the smaller henchmen. But outside of that, this card I think is supposed to be her big card, which hypothetically could be a 3 cost that gives you 5 attack. But every time it just didn't work out for me. I almost always dodged with it. I know this sounds a little mean, but she felt like Madam Hydra from the villain set, where you're sort of just using it to discard unless you really need its ability. Big card can be nice, but admittedly, it just hasn't been played yet. But there are cheaper cards that may come up that are just draw 2 that can still get the job done. So this is what the villains are bringing to the table. The masterminds you'll be going up against are Taskmaster and the Indestructible Man. And they are bringing along their villain groups, Taskmaster's Thunderbolts, as well as Elite Assassins. Let's start off with Taskmaster. His whole shtick is he is training up all the henchmen. So every time a mastermind comes out, it's going to make each henchman stronger from now on. And his villain group is going to play off that, pretty much usually replaying henchmen from people's victory piles. Really annoying thing about Taskmaster is he's 5 plus the power of your highest played card. This becomes a bit of a weird game in which you have to look at what cards you play. Maybe I won't play that card. Is that enough to beat him if I ignore this one? Oh, that big card that was so great for you? Well, you've pretty much doubled his power. So you gotta watch out for that. It can be a bit of a pain at times. It's a bit of juggling with him, and making all the henchmen very big can really be annoying when all of a sudden henchmen are coming out and they're 7 strength. Indestructible Man, on the other hand, he's a bit interesting. You don't fight him. What you do is you need to return 2 Elite Assassins from your victory pile to the enemy deck in order to gain one of his cards. I thought this was very interesting as it made the Elite Assassins pretty much targets for everyone. Whenever they would hit the board, everyone wanted to take them out in order to have a chance to go after the Indestructible Man to get more points. That said, I will say he has a very mean tactic card, which is, I believe, yes, I did put this one here. If this is not the last tactic card, this spawns into the board as a big monster, which also plays 2 villain cards and then goes back into his tactics. So he can be really hard to kill, which, well, I guess that works for the Indestructible Man, going with his name. Then we've got our 4 schemes here. We've got the Sniper Rifle Assassins, aka things are going to get really annoying. You put in 11 twists, -1 per player, but still usually a lot of twists. Whenever one comes up, you have to discard a card and draw a card, reveal the card you drew, and KO all the non-gray ones. And you lose if there's too many non-gray heroes in the KO pile. I never like the twists like these. They always seem to just put a lot of pressure on in not as enjoyable way as compared to some of the other ones for me personally. So didn't like this one too much. Corrupt the spy agencies. This one is a little fun because what happens is every time a twist comes out, you got to put something undercover, but then you get to unleash something different of a smaller price. So it's sort of like this weird back and forth, back and forth, back and forth of cards. So it's a little bit chaosy. It's not the craziest thing in the world, but I thought it was fun. Then we got Frame Heroes for Murder. This one is really interesting depending on which hero groups you use, because every time a twist comes out, you have to add a hero from the lineup that has a different number of an already removed hero. Each of these heroes count as incriminating evidence, and if 5 heroes are removed this way, you lose. So it becomes this game of trying to remove or buy certain cards of values that haven't been played yet, so when another twist comes up, really all the numbers available to you there are already been taken out. Obviously, this is way too cheap if you play with all the Spider-Man heroes, as they all cost 2. But other than that, it adds some interesting dilemmas in terms of what you may want to purchase, whether you want to be greedy or try to make sure the next twist doesn't come to bite you in the butt. Finally, there's the Trained Black Widows in the Red Room. This one, honestly, I feel you really shouldn't play with unless you have the Shield expansion. That's because this has the Shield officers become Black Widow agents. When you take them out, you can either gain them or put them undercover. And personally, adding a bunch of just Maria Hills in there might be a little boring for me. They mostly just go undercover. But I had the chance to play this with the other heroes in there, just like the sidekicks. I like the variety. I think it makes things a bit more interesting. So you're actually thinking, do I want to add this to my deck or just put it in undercover for points later? An interesting idea, but one that I feel is dependent on another expansion. Spies have multiple facades, whether they're trying to infiltrate a certain place, if they need to influence someone, or just steal something. And in the same way, this expansion has multiple faces for me, but not in the best way. There are some cards I really enjoy, such as Yelena or Black Widow or the Red Guardian. Meanwhile, Falcon and Winter Soldier, as well as White Tiger, really missed the mark for me, partially because I just didn't really enjoy Dark Memories. Same thing for the Masterminds. I think the Invincible Man, while really mean if that one tactic card comes out at the wrong time, is a bit more interesting, causes you to fight over the Elite Assassins. Taskmaster, he's hard, but not in the, I don't think he's too broken hard. He's just a bit annoying, pumping up all the henchmen, as well as bringing them back. All his tactic cards tend to respawn them from someone's victory pile, and all his villain group do that too. So he's just really annoying, especially since you have to worry about what you're playing against, which is an interesting idea, especially with the way he works. But it was still a pain to deal with him. So a lot of that is what is going on. And same thing with the twist too. I can't believe I forgot that. Some twists like the snipers, God, just dodging sniper shots was so annoying, and losing because enough things got stacked there. The problem here is I think they do a lot of really cool stuff, and they do a good job trying to make these cards undercover stand out without the Shield expansion. But with that one twist that focuses on Shield officers, combined with some of the other just undercover cards, I really feel like this expansion wants those two together. You need your Cold War of the New Age Shield American agents and the Red Room Soviet spies, except they're working together. Even if both of them do a good job adding cards that can survive on their own. Because of this, when I bring this expansion to the scale of the great weight or hate, this is definitely more on the weight side. I do think there are some really fun, good cards here, but half of them aren't just as fun. I'm not a big fan of the Dark Memories. I didn't really play much of Revelations, though I can understand how they can be really powerful. Hypothetically, the White Tiger card could be pay 3 for a 5 attack, which is really good, but it just never worked out that way for me. I was almost always dodging with it, just using it to discard and draw another card, it's not fun when you're using that. Dodge should be used for a niche card that maybe sometimes you discard, sometimes you draw, not an auto replace every time, because then what's the point of buying it? It's hard for me to put it really above weight because half of it is really fun, but the other half isn't worked that well for me. Maybe if I actually mixed it with Revelations, where the Dark Memory keyword initially came from, I might enjoy those groups better. I don't try to, if I think of a group and like, man, this will work well with this, I don't try to mix it because I don't want this expansion. I always want to see how well it does by itself. I might mention like, oh, this needs or would do fantastic with an expansion, but you shouldn't be dependent on buying them because sometimes, at least in my experience, that expansion could be out of print for a while and then even if it's really good with an expansion, it might be hard to get. And like I said, the Shield expansion also would work really well with this. I think they did a good job making it not nearly as much of a must, but it seems those two will go hand in hand. You can let me know if you played this. Am I crazy and I am just not giving Dark Memory the justice it deserves? Is it way too powerful, or is my experience of it being not the greatest outcome a more common experience for you? What do you think about these cards? Do you like the undercover mechanic? Do you enjoy the masterminds included here? You can let me know in the thoughts down below. I'd love to hear from all of you. Thank you so much for watching. If you can do the usual, the like, the share, the subscribe. I'm not trying to go undercover. I'd like this video to be seen by people. So share it with someone if you think they'd be interested. And thank you to all my rollers who support me on Patreon. But for now, I'm Will, and this has been a Roll for Crit expansion video.